We don't need useless old women with money, I heard my daughter Claire say over the phone, not knowing I was listening. In that moment, I felt my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces inside my chest. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd tell anyone. And if for just a second, this sounds familiar to you, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Carol Harrison. I'm 64 years old, and I live in a small apartment in Astoria, Queens. That October morning, I was making coffee in my tiny kitchen, my wrinkled but firm hands holding the stovetop percolator I bought over 20 years ago. The aroma of roasted coffee filled the air as I hummed a Dolly Parton song, just as I had every morning since I was widowed 8 years ago. My routine was always the same: coffee, toast with butter and cinnamon, and then checking the bills that arrived from my children. Yes, bills. Because Claire and Andrew, my only 2 children, had turned my life into a payment office. Private university for Claire, a master's in architecture, her apartment on the Upper East Side. For Andrew, specialized medical training, his clinic, his BMW, his wedding to Valerie. I paid for it all, Carol. The widow of a construction contractor who built a small real estate empire brick by brick, saving every dollar, working like a dog so my children would never know the poverty I knew as a child. That morning, as I stirred sugar into my white ceramic mug with blue flowers, a gift from my late husband, Michael, my phone rang. It was Claire. But when I answered, I realized the call wasn't for me. She had dialed my number by mistake and was talking to someone else. Invite my mom to my wedding? Please, Alex. We don't need useless old women with money. She'd just get in the way with her horrible dresses and her tacky way of talking. The words hit me like stones. My hand trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. Claire was laughing, and I could hear the voice of her fiancé, Alex, an architect from a wealthy family who always looked at me as if I were the maid when he came to visit. Imagine the embarrassment in front of my family. It's better if she doesn't even show up. What she's giving us for the wedding is more than enough, right? I felt the air grow thick, unbreathable. Claire, my little girl, the one who was born premature and whom I cared for day and night in the hospital for 3 months. The one who cried in my arms every time she had a nightmare. The one who promised that when she grew up, she would take care of me just as I had taken care of her. I stood paralyzed in my kitchen, surrounded by the photographs hanging on the walls. Claire at her graduation, smiling with her cap on. Andrew on the day he opened his clinic, hugging me with pride. My grandchildren playing in Central Park while I pushed them on the swings. But Claire's words kept echoing. Useless old woman with money, as if that's all I was. A cash machine with wrinkles and gray hair. I hung up the phone in silence and sat in my wicker chair, the same one where Michael used to read the newspaper to me every afternoon. The coffee had gone cold in my hands, but I couldn't drink it anymore. I had a lump in my throat that kept me from swallowing. I looked at the dining table, where I had the folder open with all the expenses for Claire's wedding. $400,000, almost all my savings. The wedding dress, $12,000. The catering, $150,000. The venue, $80,000. The flowers, the music, the photographer, the gold leaf invitations, all paid for by me, the useless old woman. I remembered when Claire was 7 and got pneumonia. I slept at the hospital for 2 weeks, in an uncomfortable chair, without changing my clothes, living off coffee and snacks from the vending machine. I spent all my savings on private doctors, medicine, treatments. And when she recovered, she hugged me and said, "Mommy, you're my hero." When did I stop being her hero and start being her shame? The phone rang again. This time it was Andrew, my younger son. My heart lit up for a second, thinking that maybe he would defend me, that he would tell me Claire was wrong. "Mom," he said, in that voice he'd learned to use when he needed something. "I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come to the clinic tomorrow?" "Of course, sweetie. Is everything okay?" Yeah, it's just, I need your help with an investment. It's to expand the clinic. It's only $200,000. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. $200,000. After the $400,000 for Claire's wedding. $600,000 in total. Practically everything I had left after buying them apartments, cars, paying for their education, and Caribbean vacations. Okay, Andrew. We'll talk tomorrow. I hung up and stared at my hands. Hands that had worked cleaning houses, in kitchens, on construction sites, carrying bricks alongside Michael. Hands that were now shaking not from old age, but from the terrible realization that my children didn't see me as their mother. They saw me as their early inheritance. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering every sacrifice I had made. When Claire wanted to study architecture at a very expensive private university, I sold my mother's jewelry. When Andrew needed money for his surgical residency, I mortgaged the house that Michael and I had built with so much love. And now I was a useless old woman with money who would get in the way at her own daughter's wedding. At 3 a.m, I got up and went to the closet where I kept all the family photos in shoeboxes. I took them out one by one, remembering each moment. Claire taking her first steps, Andrew learning to ride a bike, the Christmases when we were a happy, united family. But none of those photos showed the truth, that I was buying my children's love with every dollar I gave them. And the most painful part of it all was that, until that day, I hadn't even realized it. The next day, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange feeling in my chest, as if something had broken forever. I got ready as usual. Coffee, toast. But this time I couldn't swallow a single bite. Claire's words kept replaying in my ears like a cursed song I couldn't get out of my head. I sat at my dining table, the same one where Michael and I used to plan our dreams every Sunday morning, and I opened all my folders. Invoices, receipts, bank transfers. 20 years of my life summarized in papers that smelled of sacrifice. The first folder was Claire's. I opened the first page, and there it was. September 2005, tuition for architecture at NYU, $35,000. I remembered that day perfectly. Claire was 18 and had run home with her eyes shining with excitement. "Mom, I got in! I got into the architecture program!" she shouted, jumping around the kitchen like she did when she was a little girl. I was peeling potatoes for dinner, my blue apron full of stains, and I hugged her with my still damp hands. "Of course you got in, sweetie. You're the smartest girl in all of New York." But when I saw the paper with the tuition cost, it felt like a punch to the gut. $35,000. Michael and I together made about $3,000 a month back then. We would have to work for a full year, without eating, without spending a dime, just to pay for the first year. "Don't you worry, honey," I told her, stroking the brown hair that looked so much like mine when I was young. "Your father and I will find a way." And we did. I sold my grandmother's engagement ring, a white gold piece with a small diamond that had been our family's treasure for 3 generations. I took it to a pawn shop on Canal Street, and the man behind the counter with his thick glasses and unfriendly face offered me $8,000. "Ma'am, this is the most I can give you. Take it or leave it." I just stood there, holding the ring in my palm, remembering the day Michael had put it on my finger. "Carol," he had said, kneeling in Central Park, "this ring belonged to my grandmother, and now it belongs to you. I promise to love you until death do us part." But I sold it. For Claire. For her dreams. I flipped through the pages of the folder. Second year, 38,000 more. Third year, 42,000 because tuition had gone up. Fourth year, 45,000. Fifth year, 50,000. In total, over $200,000 just for the university. But that wasn't all. In the next section were Claire's living expenses in the city, the apartment in the East Village I rented for her when she was 20. $1,500 a month. Food because, Mom, I don't have time to cook at school. $400 a month. Clothes because I need to dress well for presentations. $500 every season. For 5 years, I supported Claire as if she were a princess, while Michael and I ate lentils 4 days a week and bought our clothes at Goodwill. But what hurt the most to find was a receipt I had completely forgotten. Year 2008, a private clinic. $5,000 for a nose job. "Mom," Claire had told me on the phone, "I need to get my nose done. It's for my health, you know? I have a deviated septum." I didn't know anything about medicine, so I believed her. I took out a personal loan with a 12% annual interest rate, and for 3 years I paid off that $5,000, which turned into $8,000 with interest. Years later, I found out by chance, when a neighbor mentioned seeing Claire in an architecture magazine, that the surgery hadn't been medical, it was cosmetic. Claire had gotten a nose job because she didn't like the way she looked, and she had lied to me. I closed Claire's folder and opened Andrew's. If the first one had hurt, this one was like a knife straight to the heart. Andrew, my baby. The one born with respiratory problems who spent his first 2 months of life hooked up to machines in the hospital. The one who woke me up every night crying because he couldn't breathe properly. The one who would hug me and say, "Mommy, don't ever leave me." His folder was even thicker than Claire's. Medical school. 6 years at $50,000 a year. $300,000. The apartment in Boston during his studies. $2,000 a month for 6 years. $144,000. The medical textbooks, which cost a fortune. $500 every semester. But what really broke my soul was finding a letter Andrew had written to me when he was 25. "Dear Mom," it said in his doctor's handwriting, "I know I've asked for a lot of money these years, but I want you to know it's all an investment. When I'm a successful doctor, I'm going to pay you back every dollar with interest. I'm going to buy you a big house upstate. I'm going to take you on trips around the world. I'm going to give you the life you deserve. I love you more than anything in this world. Your adoring son, Andrew." I had kept that letter on my bedside table for years. I read it whenever I felt tired of working, whenever I doubted if I was doing the right thing, spending all my savings on my children. It was my hope, my light on dark days. But that letter had been written 15 years ago. And since then, Andrew had not only not paid me back a single dollar, but he kept asking for more and more. The specialization in cardiovascular surgery, $80,000. The equipment for his clinic, $100,000. His wedding to Valerie at a 5-star hotel in the Hamptons, $60,000. The honeymoon in Bali, $15,000. And then came the worst part, the apartment. "Mom," Andrew had said to me 2 years ago, "Valerie and I want to buy an apartment on the Upper East Side. It's perfect to start our family, but we need help with the down payment." "How much?" I asked, though I already knew it would be an amount that would hurt. $300,000. I know it's a lot, but it's an investment. Prices are going to go up, and in a few years it'll be worth double. $300,000. Almost everything I had left from the sale of the properties Michael had bought years ago, thinking about our future, our quiet retirement. But I gave it to him, because he was my son, because I trusted him, because I believed that when I was truly old and needed help, he would be there for me. I got up from the table and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. My hands trembled as I turned on the faucet. Through the window, I could see the building's courtyard, where Mrs. Rodriguez was hanging her laundry, as she had every day for the last 20 years. A normal, predictable life, without children who saw you as a bank. I went back to my table and took out the calculator. I added up all the expenses. Claire's university, her apartment, her whims, her wedding, Andrew's university, his specialization, his clinic, his apartment, his wedding. The total was terrifying. Over $1.5 million. $1.5 million that I had given with love, with sacrifice, with the hope that my children would value everything I did for them. And the result was Claire calling me a useless old woman, and Andrew seeing me only as a source of funding for his projects. I sat there, looking at those numbers, and for the first time in my life, I wondered if I had been an idiot, if I had confused love with indulgence, if I had turned my children into selfish monsters by giving them everything without asking for anything in return. The phone rang again. It was Claire. "Hi, Mommy," she said in that sweet voice she used when she wanted something. "How are you? You sounded weird yesterday." "I'm fine, Claire." "Good. Hey, I need to ask you a little favor. Remember that wedding dress I showed you? Well, I found a better one, but it costs $8,000 more. Do you think you could—" I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The girl who had once been my hero was now asking me for $8,000 more after calling me a useless old woman. "Claire," I said in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. "I have to think about it." There was silence on the other end of the line. Claire had never heard an "I have to think about it" from my lips. "Think about it? Mom, it's just for my dress. It's my wedding. I know, honey. But I need time to look at my finances. I hung up before she could reply, and I stood there, holding the phone, wondering when I had started to be afraid of disappointing my own children. That afternoon, I decided to visit Andrew at his clinic. I needed to look him in the eye, to see if there was anything left of the little boy who used to hug me every night before bed. The clinic was in a modern glass and steel building in Midtown that shone like a palace I had helped build. When I got to the reception, the secretary, a very young woman with perfectly straight hair and gel nails, looked me up and down with an expression I knew well. It was the look reserved for older women who didn't wear designer clothes. "How can I help you?" she asked without looking up from her computer. "I'm here to see Dr. Andrew Harrison. I'm his mother." The girl looked at me with surprise, as if she couldn't believe someone like me was the mother of her elegant boss. "Oh, the doctor is with a patient. Do you have an appointment?" "I don't need an appointment. I'm his mother." You'll have to wait. You can sit over there." She pointed to some white leather chairs in the waiting area. I sat and waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. Finally, Andrew came out of his office, escorting an elderly woman, very well dressed, who was carrying a Hermes bag that cost more than I spent on clothes in 5 years. "Mrs. Martinez," he was saying with a smile I didn't recognize. "Don't you worry about a thing. The procedure was a complete success. In 2 weeks, you'll be good as new." He walked her to the door with a gentleness he had never shown with me, holding her arm as if it were made of glass. Only when she left did he see me sitting in the waiting room. "Mom," he said, surprised, "what are you doing here? Can't I come visit my son?" "Of course, but I'm really busy. What did you want to talk about?" He didn't invite me into his office. We spoke right there, standing at the reception while the secretary pretended not to listen, and other patients looked at us curiously. "Andrew, I wanted to ask you about the investment you mentioned." "Oh, right. I'll email you the papers, okay? I have to see another patient now." He gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, the kind you give when you want someone to leave, and went back into his office. I stood there, feeling like a stranger in the place I had helped pay for. When I got home, I sat on my worn-out sofa and thought about all the times I had been treated like a nuisance. Not just by Claire and Andrew, but by their partners, their friends, even my own grandchildren. I remembered last Christmas. We were supposed to have dinner together at Claire's house. I arrived promptly at 8, as we had agreed, carrying bags of gifts for everyone and a tray of homemade meatballs I had been cooking since 5 in the morning. "Oh, Mom," Claire said when she opened the door. "You're here so early. We're just getting the last details ready." But it wasn't true. When I walked in, everyone was already sitting in the living room, drinking champagne and laughing. They had started without me. Dinner was already served on the table. "Hi, Grandma," my grandchildren said without getting up from the sofa, without even looking up from their phones. "Why didn't you tell me you moved the time up?" I asked, setting the gift bags in a corner. "We forgot to tell you," said Alex, Claire's fiancé, with that fake smile he always gave me. "But you're here now, right?" Throughout the dinner, they treated me as if I were invisible. They talked about their jobs, their trips, their plans, but they never asked me how I was, what I had been up to, how I was feeling. When they served dessert, Claire stood up with a glass of champagne in her hand. "I'd like to make a toast," she announced with a smile. "To the coming year, to our wedding, to all the good things waiting for us." Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine too, hoping someone would toast to my health, my well-being, to the years I had left. But no one did. They toasted to Claire and Alex's future, to the success of Andrew's clinic, to the grandchildren doing well in school. But they treated me like a piece of furniture. That night, when I returned to my empty apartment, I cried until I had no tears left. But the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks ago, on my 64th birthday, I waited all day for a call, a visit, a text message, anything, nothing. At 8 in the evening, when I had lost all hope, I got a WhatsApp message from Claire. "Happy B-Day, Mom. Super busy with wedding prep. We'll call you tomorrow. Kisses." Tomorrow never came. Andrew didn't even remember. 3 days later, when I reminded him it had been my birthday, he said, "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I was in surgery all day. You know how it is. As if saving lives was more important than remembering the day the woman who gave him life was born. But the straw that broke the camel's back came last week. I was at Kroger, doing my weekly shopping with my discount coupons and my carefully calculated list to not spend more than $50, when I saw Valerie, Andrew's wife, in the gourmet food aisle. Her cart was overflowing with prosciutto di Parma, imported cheeses, French wine, Swiss chocolate, things that cost more than my entire month's grocery bill. "Carol," she shouted when she saw me, as if we were the best of friends. "How are you?" "I'm fine, Valerie." "And you?" "Perfect. Look, I'm buying things for a dinner party I'm hosting tomorrow. Some of Andrew's very important colleagues are coming. Did you know this prosciutto is $40 a pound? But it's worth it to make a good impression." I stared at that ham, which cost almost as much as my food budget for 2 weeks, and something inside me snapped. "It's nice that you can afford such luxuries," I said with a forced smile. "Oh, Carol, but it's thanks to you that we can live so well. Andrew always says you're his financial guardian angel. Financial guardian angel. As if I were a bank with wings." "Speaking of which," Valerie continued, tossing a $120 bottle of wine into her cart, "did you talk to Andrew about the investment? Because we really need to get that sorted out soon. We want to start the apartment renovations in January." "What renovations?" "Oh, didn't he tell you? We want to remodel the entire kitchen and both bathrooms. You know, with the clinic doing so well, the house needs to be up to par. We'll have a lot of important patients over for dinner." Important patients. As if I wasn't. That night, when I got home with my 4 shopping bags full of generic brand products and sale items, I sat in my kitchen and I cried. I cried for all the forgotten birthdays, for all the Christmases where I was treated like a stranger, for all the times they asked for money as if I were an ATM. But most of all, I cried because I realized something terrible. My children didn't love me. They tolerated me. They put up with me. They kept me around not because they wanted to share their lives with me, but because they needed my money. And the most painful part of it all was that I was the one to blame. I had created these monsters. I had taught them that love was bought with dollars, that responsibilities were paid with bank transfers, that being a mother meant being an unlimited financial resource. I wiped my tears and went to my bedroom. I opened my nightstand drawer and took out an old photo of Michael and me on our wedding day. We were so young, so happy, so full of hope. "Michael," I whispered to the photograph, "I think I went wrong with our children. I think I loved them so much that I turned them into people who don't know how to love." That night, for the first time in 20 years, I didn't check my bank accounts to see how much money I could transfer to my children. Instead, I wondered how much money I had left for myself. The answer scared me. Almost nothing. And I asked myself something even more terrifying. What would happen when I had nothing left to give? The next day, I made the hardest decision of my life. I woke up at 5 in the morning, as always. But this time it wasn't out of habit. It was because I had spent the whole night awake, thinking, crying, and finally, deciding. I put on my best clothes, the navy blue dress I had bought for Claire's graduation, the low-heeled black shoes I only wore on special occasions, and the pearl necklace Michael had given me on our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look dignified for what I was about to do. I went down to the street and walked to the Bank of America office where I had kept my accounts for 30 years. Mr. Julian, the manager, had known me since Michael and I were young and struggling for our first loans. "Carol," he said with that fatherly smile that had always reassured me, "how can I help you today?" "Julian, I need you to show me the statements for all my accounts. And I need to make some important changes." For 2 hours, we went over every number, every transfer, every transaction from the last 5 years. The results were devastating, but also revealing. "Carol," Julian said in a concerned voice, "in the last 5 years, you've transferred over $1.5 million to your children's accounts. Your savings account, which once had $500,000, now has only $60,000. $60,000. It was all I had left from a lifetime of work and sacrifice. "What do you want to do?" he asked me. "I want to cancel the automatic transfer authorizations to Claire and Andrew's accounts, And I want to create a new account, in my name only, where I'll deposit what's left. Julian looked at me with understanding. He had seen many cases like mine over his years at the bank. Are you sure, Carol? This is a big decision. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I signed all the necessary papers. Every signature felt like a small release. For the first time in years, my money was just mine. When I left the bank, I sat on a bench in Central Park, the same one where Michael and I used to have snacks on Sundays. I took out my phone and wrote 2 messages. To Claire, honey, I need you to come to my house this afternoon. We need to talk about something very important. It's not negotiable. To Andrew, son, come to the house at 6 this evening. Bring Valerie. There are things I need to tell you. Neither of them answered immediately, which was typical, but 2 hours later, I got their replies. Claire, Mom, I'm super busy with wedding prep. Can it wait? Is it about the money for the dress? Andrew, Ma, is it urgent? I have surgeries until late. If it's about the investment, we'd better talk tomorrow. I wrote back, but this time with a firmness I didn't even recognize in myself. This isn't a suggestion. It's an order. If you don't come today, you'll find out what I have to say over the phone, and I assure you, you'd rather hear it in person. By 5 in the afternoon, they were at my door. Claire arrived first, with the annoyed look she got when things didn't go her way. She was wearing a beige dress that cost more than I spent on clothes in an entire year, and her Louis Vuitton bag hung from her arm like a statement. Mom, this had better be important because I canceled 3 appointments to come here. 10 minutes later, Andrew arrived with Valerie. He came straight from the hospital, still in his scrubs, looking irritated. Valerie, on the other hand, was smiling that fake smile she always gave me when she wanted something. Carol, she said, giving me 2 kisses on the cheeks. So good to see you. Andrew told me you had news about the investment. I had them sit in my small living room. Claire settled on the sofa as if she owned the place, looking around with that disdainful expression that had recently become her habit. Andrew sat on the edge of his chair, constantly checking his watch, as if being at his mother's house was a waste of time. Children, I began in the calmest voice I could muster. For the last few days, I've been doing some accounting, reviewing numbers, remembering things. Mom, Claire interrupted impatiently, if this is about my wedding dress, I already told you I found the perfect one. I just need another $8,000 and— Silence, I yelled, and my own voice surprised me. I had never yelled at my children. I had never raised my voice in that house. The 3 of them fell silent, staring at me with surprised eyes. Over the last 5 years, I continued, I have given you $1.5 million. Claire, I have paid for your university, your apartment, your whims, and now your wedding. Andrew, I have paid for your medical degree, your specialization, your clinic's equipment, your apartment, your own wedding. Mom, but we never asked you to— Andrew started. You never asked? I cut him off. Andrew, you're 32 years old, and the last time you paid for something with your own money was— I can't even remember, because you've always had my money as a safety net. Valerie shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Claire, I went on, 2 days ago, I heard you on the phone say that I'm a useless old woman with money, who would only get in the way at your wedding. The color drained from Claire's face. Her eyes widened like saucers. Mom, that wasn't— It was a joke. A joke? I stood up from my chair, trembling with rage and pain. Calling the woman who bled herself dry to pay for every dollar of your education a useless old woman is a joke. Carol, Valerie interjected with her most diplomatic voice. It was surely a misunderstanding. Claire adores you. We all know that. No, I shouted again. Enough lies. Enough theatrics. I know exactly what you think of me. I'm your cash machine. I'm the old fool who gives you money without asking what you want it for. Claire started to cry, but they were fake tears, crocodile tears. Mom, please, you're misinterpreting everything. I love you. You're the most important thing in my life. If I'm so important, I said with an icy calm, why haven't you invited me to your wedding? Silence. A silence so heavy you could cut it with a knife. Why, Claire? Why is the woman who is paying $400,000 for your wedding not invited to your wedding? Mom, it's just that the guest list is really tight and— Liar! I screamed with a force I didn't know I had. It's because you're ashamed of me. Because I'm an old woman from Queens who doesn't fit in with your high society friends. Andrew got up from his chair. Mom, you're getting hysterical. Sit down and let's talk calmly. Hysterical? Hysterical? I walked up to him until we were face to face. Andrew, 3 months ago you asked me for $300,000 to expand your clinic. I gave it to you without question. 2 weeks ago was my birthday. You didn't even remember. His face turned red with shame. Mom, I already told you I was in surgery and do you know what I did on my birthday? I continued without letting him finish. I sat here alone with a cake I bought for myself, waiting for a call. A single call. From either of my 2 children who claimed to love me so much. Carol, Valerie tried to intervene again, but we called you the next day. 3 days later, and only because I reminded you it had been my birthday. I walked over to the dining table where I had all the papers I had prepared. I want you to know something, I said, holding up the bank documents. Today, I canceled all the automatic transfer authorizations you had on my accounts. From now on, if you want my money, you'll have to ask me for it face to face and justify what you need it for. Claire jumped to her feet. What? Mom, you can't do that. My wedding is in 2 months. I need the money to pay the vendors. And I needed a daughter who respected me, I replied. It seems neither of us is going to get what we need. Andrew approached me with his hands outstretched, as if I were a patient who needed to be calmed. Mom, I understand you're upset, but you made this decision in a moment of anger. You'll regret it tomorrow. Think about it. I have thought about it. For 40 years I have thought about you before myself. It's time I thought about Carol. Valerie, who had tried to remain diplomatic until now, finally showed her true colors. Carol, I don't know what you've gotten into your head, but Andrew and Claire are your children. It's your responsibility to help them. It's what mothers do. I looked at her squarely, and, for the first time in years, I said exactly what I was thinking. Valerie, you don't have children, so don't you dare explain to me what mothers do. And another thing, this is my house. If you don't like how I talk, there's the door. Valerie turned red with anger, but she didn't dare say another word. Claire was still crying, but they were no longer fake tears. They were tears of panic. Mom, please. If you do this, my wedding will be a disaster. Everyone will find out I can't pay. Alex and his family will think we're poor. And what's wrong with being poor, Claire? I was poor my whole life, and it didn't make me a worse person than you. That's different, Claire mumbled. Different how? Well, you were used to it. We're not. And there it was. The truth. My children saw me as someone beneath them, someone used to poverty, to sacrifice, to hardship, while they deserved the best. In that moment, I knew I had made the right decision. After they left my house, slamming doors and shouting threats about how much I would regret this, I was left alone in my living room. The silence that followed was different from any silence I had ever experienced. It was not the empty silence of loneliness, but the full silence of freedom. For the first time in 20 years, my phone didn't ring every hour with requests for money. For the first time in 2 decades, I didn't have to check my bank account, wondering how much I could transfer to my children without leaving myself with nothing. That first night, I slept deeply. I didn't wake up at 3 in the morning worrying if Claire would have enough money for her wedding expenses. I didn't get up at 5 thinking about how to help Andrew with his investments. I slept like a baby, with a peace I had forgotten existed. The next day, I woke up without rushing. I didn't have to run to the bank to make urgent transfers. I didn't have to answer desperate calls for money. For the first time in years, the day belonged entirely to me. I made myself a real latte. Not that cheap skim milk I bought to save money so I could give more to them. I bought croissants from the corner bakery, the French butter ones I had always wanted to try but considered too expensive. I sat at my small dining table and ate my breakfast slowly, savoring every bite. The phone started ringing at 10 in the morning. Claire. I didn't answer. It rang again 5 minutes later. Andrew. I didn't answer that either. For the entire morning, the phone rang every 15 minutes. Calls from Claire, from Andrew, from Valerie, even from Alex, Claire's fiancé, who had never called me in the 5 years he had been with my daughter. But I didn't answer a single call. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I went for a walk through the city with no destination in mind. I walked down Fifth Avenue, looking at the shop windows without feeling guilty for not working or saving for my children. I went into Macy's and bought myself a sky blue blouse I liked, without wondering if that money would be better spent on Claire's whims or Andrew's investments. It cost $60. $60 that, for the first time in years, I spent only on myself. When I got home, I had 14 missed calls and 27 WhatsApp messages. I didn't read them, not a single one. Instead, I made myself a snack with prosciutto and manchego cheese, the kind I always saw at the supermarket but never bought because they were too expensive for someone who had to support two spoiled adults. At 6 p.m, the doorbell rang, insistently, as if it were an emergency. "Mom, open the door! I know you're in there!" Claire shouted from the hallway. I didn't open it. "Carol, please, we need to talk," came Valerie's voice. "This is crazy. You're behaving like a child." I still didn't open it. They were there for an hour, ringing the bell, banging on the door, shouting in the hallway like lunatics. Until finally, Mrs. Rodriguez, my lifelong neighbor, came out of her apartment. "Hey, leave Carol alone. If she doesn't want to open the door, there must be a reason. And stop making a racket, there are little kids trying to nap." I heard them grumble as they went down the stairs. That night, as I ate a cheese omelet I had made just for myself, more messages arrived. This time, I decided to read a few. Claire, "Mom, you're acting insane. Think about what you're doing. My wedding is going to be ruined because of your tantrum." Andrew, "Ma, people are going to find out you cut off our access to your money. What are they going to think of us?" Valerie, "Carol, I hope you come to your senses. Andrew is very hurt. He never thought his own mother would betray him like this." Reading those messages confirmed I had made the right decision. Not a single one expressed concern for my well-being. Not a single one apologized for treating me like a useless old woman. They only cared about my money. But the message that hit me the hardest came at 10 o'clock. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Grandma. It's Lucy. Mom gave me your number. I wanted to say I'm proud of you. It was about time you told them the truth. Lucy, my 16-year-old granddaughter, Andrew's daughter. The only one in the whole family who had always treated me with genuine affection without asking for anything in return." I replied immediately, "Thank you, my sweet girl. How are you?" "I'm okay, Grandma. Dad and Valerie are going crazy, saying you've lost your mind. But I heard them talking, and I know they're just worried about the money. I've never seen them so desperate. And what do you think about all this?" "I think you did the right thing. I've always seen you give them everything while they treat you badly. The other day, Valerie said right in front of me that you were a burden, that you were always bothering them with your calls. It made me so angry. Reading that broke my heart. But it also filled me with strength. If a teenager could see the truth so clearly, why had it taken me so long to see it? "Lucy, can I ask you a favor?" "Of course, Grandma. Could you come visit me tomorrow? It's been a long time since we've chatted, just you and me." "I'd love to. I'll come after school." That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next day, Lucy arrived promptly at 5 p.m. She was a tall, slim girl with wavy brown hair and her grandfather Michael's green eyes. But what I loved most about her was her genuine smile, so different from her parents' fake ones. "Hi, Grandma," she said, giving me a real hug, the kind that lasts more than 2 seconds and you can feel in your heart. I made her hot chocolate with churros, just like I used to when she was little and would spend afternoons with me. "Tell me," I said, "how are things at your house?" Lucy sighed deeply. "It's chaos, Grandma. Dad is pacing back and forth talking on the phone with the bank, trying to get loans. Valerie cries every 5 minutes, saying they're going to have to sell the apartment. And Mom, well, you know how Mom is. Is Claire very angry with me?" "Furious. She says you humiliated her in front of Alex, that now he and his family will think we're poor. She spent all day yesterday crying because she can't afford the wedding dress she wanted. And what do you think about all that?" Lucy looked me straight in the eye, with a maturity that surprised me. "Grandma, I'm 16, but I'm not stupid. I know that my whole life I've watched you work like a dog to give everything to Dad and Aunt Claire, and I have never, not once, seen them treat you with the respect you deserve." Her words touched my soul. "Go on," I encouraged her. "Last year, for your 63rd birthday, do you remember how no one came?" I remember. I wanted to come, but Dad said they had more important things to do. Valerie said that old people's birthdays were depressing. I felt a stab in my chest. That day, I came to see you by myself, remember? And I found you crying in the kitchen. I did remember. Lucy had shown up as a surprise with a small cake she had bought with her allowance. Grandma, Lucy continued, that day I promised myself that when I grew up, I would never treat my parents like that. And I also promised myself that I would always defend you when they spoke badly of you. They speak badly of me? Lucy looked down. Yes, Grandma. Always. They say you're a burden, that you don't understand their lifestyle, that you bother them with your problems. Every word was like a slap in the face. But I've never agreed with them, she added quickly. I've always thought you're the most generous and kind person in the whole family. I got up from my chair and hugged her tightly. Lucy, you are the only good thing this family has given me. Grandma, she said, pulling back a little to look at me. Can I tell you something? Of course. I think you should enjoy your money. Buy yourself nice things. Travel. Do everything you could never do because you were always giving it all to them. Her words opened a window I didn't know existed. You know what? I said, smiling for the first time in weeks. I think you're right. That afternoon, after Lucy left, I sat on my sofa, and for the first time in decades, I asked myself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? The answer came to me like a revelation. I wanted to live for myself. A week after my conversation with Lucy, I decided it was time for the final confrontation. I couldn't live in this limbo forever, dodging calls and messages. I needed to close this chapter of my life once and for all. I sent a message to Claire and Andrew. Come to my house tomorrow, Sunday, at 11 in the morning. We are going to talk one last time. If you don't come, I will understand that you want nothing more to do with me, and I will want nothing more to do with you. This time, there were no excuses or delays. At 11 sharp, they were at my door. Claire arrived with Alex, her fiancé. She had dark circles under her eyes and looked haggard, as if she hadn't slept in days. Alex, who usually radiated the arrogance of a rich man, now looked uncomfortable and nervous. Andrew came with Valerie and, to my surprise, with Lucy as well. My granddaughter winked at me from behind her parents, as if to say she was on my side. Mom, Claire began before they could even sit down, I hope you've come to your senses. My wedding is in 3 weeks. I need you to release the money right now or everything will be ruined. Sit down, I told them, with a calm I didn't feel inside. Once they were settled in my small living room, I went to my bedroom and returned with an old shoebox. I placed it on the dining table. What's that? Andrew asked curiously. This box contains 30 years of my life, I replied, opening the lid. 30 years of letters, photos, memories, and receipts. I took out a letter, yellowed with time. This is a letter your father, Andrew, wrote to me when you were 5, and in the hospital with pneumonia. It said, Carol, thank you for being the best mother in the world. Our son is going to pull through because he has a mom who loves him more than her own life. My voice broke a little, but I continued. And this, I said, taking out a photo, is from the day Claire graduated with her architecture degree. Here are all 3 of us, Michael, Claire, and me. Claire is hugging me and whispering in my ear, Mommy, someday I'm going to pay you back for everything you've done for me. Oh, Claire looked down, ashamed. But what hurts the most, I continued, is this. I took out a small recorder I had bought that week. What is that? Valerie asked suspiciously. It's a recorder. And on it I have recordings of all our phone conversations from the past week. A dead silence fell over the room. I pressed the play button. First came Claire's voice. Alex, my mom has lost her mind. She cut off our money because she's jealous of our happiness. She's a bitter old woman who can't stand to see us succeed. Then Alex's voice. Claire, maybe it's for the best. I always thought it was weird that a woman of her social class had so much money. My family always wondered where all that money you spent came from. Claire turned beet red. I kept playing the recording. Now it was Andrew's voice. Valerie, we're going to have to sell the apartment. Without my mother's money, we can't maintain this lifestyle. And Valerie's voice. Well, convince her. Make her feel sorry for you. Tell her you'll kill yourself if she doesn't help. You have to think of something. Andrew looked like he had seen a ghost, but the recording that had hurt me the most was at the end. It was a conversation between Claire and one of her friends. "Your mom isn't coming to your wedding?" the friend asked. And Claire replied, "God, no. My mom is so tacky. She dresses horribly, talks loud, and eats with her hands. Alex's family would think I have no class. It's better if she just stays home watching her soap operas." I stopped the recorder and looked at them one by one. I made these recordings legally. Where I come from, it's legal to record phone conversations if one party consents. And I consent to recording conversations where you talk about me. Alex stood up. "Carol, this is a violation of privacy." "A violation of privacy?" I laughed bitterly. "And what have you been doing to me for 20 years? Does violating my dignity count as a violation of privacy?" Claire started to cry, but this time they were real tears. "Mom, I didn't mean those things. I was stressed about the wedding and—" "Enough!" I shouted, getting up from my chair. "Enough excuses. Enough justifications. For 20 years, I've heard an excuse for everything." I walked over to the cabinet where I kept all my important documents. "I want you to know something," I said, pulling out some papers. "Yesterday, I went to my lawyer and I changed my will." Andrew and Claire looked at each other in panic. "Everything I have, absolutely everything, will go to Lucy." "What?" Claire and Andrew shouted in unison. "The house, the savings, the investments, everything. Lucy is the only person in this family who has treated me with genuine respect and love." Valerie shot up from her seat. "Carol, you can't do that. Children have a right to their parents' inheritance." "In this country," I replied with a cold smile, "parents can disinherit their children if they can prove mistreatment, and I have these recordings as proof." I pulled out another document. "This is a medical report from Dr. Gonzalez, my family doctor. It certifies that I have developed anxiety and depression due to the psychological abuse from my children." Claire got up and approached me. "Mom, please, forgive me. I was wrong. I promise everything will change. Like when you promised you'd pay me back for everything I'd done for you. That was different. I was young and—" "Claire, you are 35 years old. You are not young. You are a grown woman who made the conscious decision to humiliate her mother." Andrew came closer too. "Ma, if it's about money, we can work something out. We can give you a monthly allowance when I start generating more income." I looked at him in disbelief. "An allowance? To me? With my own money?" "No, Mom, I mean when the clinic—" "Andrew, the clinic exists because of my money. I paid for your apartment. I paid for your education. Everything you have, I gave you." Alex, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "Carol, I understand you're upset, but Claire is your daughter. You can't punish her for the rest of her life for a few words said in a moment of stress." I turned to him with a fury I didn't know I possessed. "Alex, you don't know me. You know nothing about my life, my sacrifices, my suffering, and yet you dare to tell me how I should treat my daughter. I'm just saying that—" "You don't say anything," I yelled at him. "You live in an apartment that I paid for. You are about to have a wedding that I am financing. And on top of that, you have the nerve to tell me that Claire is right to be ashamed of me." Alex turned red and didn't know what to say. Then I did something I had been planning all week. I went to the kitchen and came back with a tray. On it were all the credit cards I had canceled, all cut into tiny pieces. "These are all the additional cards you had on my accounts. They've been canceled for a week." I also put the keys to the apartment I had bought for Andrew on the table. "Andrew, this apartment is mine again. You have 1 month to move out." "What?" "Mom, you can't do that. We live there. You can go live with Valerie's parents. I'm sure they'll be thrilled to support you." Valerie went pale. Finally, I took out a large envelope and handed it to Claire. "What's this?" she asked, her hands trembling. "It's your wedding gift." Claire opened the envelope hopefully, thinking there might be a check inside. Instead, there was a photo. It was her graduation picture, the one we had taken together on that special day. But the photo was torn in half. My part had been ripped away. "This photo perfectly represents what you want," I told her. "Your life without me. Your success without acknowledging my sacrifice. Your happiness by erasing my presence." Claire looked at the photo and began to sob uncontrollably. Congratulations, Claire. You finally have what you always wanted. A life without your mother. Lucy, who had been silent the whole time, came over and hugged me. Grandma, I'm so proud of you. Claire, Andrew, Valerie, and Alex stood there, speechless, looking at me as if they couldn't believe what was happening. Now, I said, walking towards the door, I'm going to ask you to leave my house. I don't want to see you again until you learn to treat me with the respect I deserve. Mom, Claire pleaded, give me one more chance. Claire, I gave you 35 years of chances. I don't have any more to give. One by one, they left my house. Claire was the last, turning at the door to look at me one last time. Mom, someday you're going to regret this. Claire, I answered, the only thing I regret is that it took me so long to do it. I closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time in decades, I felt completely free. For 2 weeks after the confrontation, I lived in a peace I hadn't experienced in decades. No desperate calls, no requests for money, no family drama. For the first time in years, my life belonged entirely to me. Lucy came to visit me every day after school. We did simple but meaningful things together. We baked, watched old movies, and chatted about her dreams of studying graphic design. It was like having a second chance at being a grandmother, but this time with someone who truly valued my company. One afternoon, while we were baking chocolate chip cookies in my small kitchen, Lucy mentioned something that unsettled me. Grandma, something weird is going on at home. What kind of weird? Dad and Valerie are having very strange meetings. People I don't know come over, they talk in hushed voices, and when I walk into the living room, everyone goes quiet. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured they were meetings about selling the apartment or about the debts they must have had after I cut off their funding. But 3 days later, everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Carol Harrison. Yes, this is she. Mrs. Harrison, this is Detective Miller with the NYPD. We need you to come down to the precinct as soon as possible. My blood ran cold. Has something happened? Is it about my children? Ma'am, we'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come in this morning? An hour later, I was sitting in a gray office at the 19th precinct, across from a man in his 50s with a serious face and a thick file on his desk. Mrs. Harrison, we've received a very serious complaint against you. A complaint? What kind of complaint? Your children, Claire and Andrew Harrison, along with Valerie Martin and Alex Ruiz, have filed a complaint for psychological abuse, emotional blackmail, and harassment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm sorry? According to the complaint, you have been threatening them, emotionally blackmailing them, and subjecting them to psychological abuse for months. The detective opened the file and began to read. The complaint states, and I quote, Carol Harrison has been exercising control and manipulation over us, using money as a weapon for blackmail. She constantly threatens to cut off our financial support if we do not do as she says. She has gone to the extreme of recording us without our consent and threatening to leave us homeless. I was speechless, absolutely speechless. Furthermore, the detective continued, they submitted these recordings as evidence where you are allegedly threatening them. He turned on a player. My own voice began to speak, but the words were cut and edited in such a way that it sounded like I was threatening them. In the edited recording, you could hear me say, I'm going to take everything. You're going to have nothing. You'll be on the street. You're going to suffer like I've suffered. It was my voice, but those weren't my complete sentences. They had cut up our conversations and pasted them together to make me sound like a vengeful, cruel woman. Detective? I said, my voice trembling. Those recordings are edited. I have the complete, unedited recordings where you can hear the real context. Mrs. Harrison, are you admitting that you recorded your children? Yes. But in New York, it's legal to record phone calls if one party consents. That may be, ma'am, he interrupted. But the complaint alleges illegal wiretapping. They claim you recorded them without being a party to the conversation. But they were talking about me, and I was on the calls I recorded. Ma'am, right now, we are just investigating the complaint as it was filed. That is a matter for the lawyers to sort out. I realized I had walked into a legal trap. They had consulted with lawyers and found a way to use my own recordings against me. In addition, the detective went on, we have statements from neighbors confirming that you have been harassing them with phone calls and have exhibited erratic behavior. What neighbors? We prefer not to disclose their identities at this time. I left the precinct feeling dizzy and confused. How had they managed to turn my legitimate self-defense into a criminal accusation against me? That same afternoon, I received a call from a lawyer. Mrs. Harrison, I represent your children, Claire and Andrew. We would like to reach an out-of-court settlement. What kind of settlement? If you remove the financial restrictions and resume providing the economic support you previously gave them, they will withdraw the complaint. The blood rushed to my head. Are you blackmailing me? Ma'am, it's a proposal for a mutual agreement. You avoid a legal process that could result in a conviction for harassment and abuse, and they get the economic stability they need. And if I don't accept? The legal process continues. And I must warn you, the evidence against you is quite compelling. I hung up the phone, shaking with rage and fear. My own children were extorting me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my small apartment like a caged animal, trying to understand how it had come to this. Was I really the villain in this story? Was it possible that I had psychologically abused my children without realizing it? The next day, I went to see my doctor, Dr. Evans, who had known me for 20 years. Carol, he said after reviewing all the documentation, this is a very sophisticated legal manipulation. Your children have consulted with lawyers who specialize in family law to find a way to turn the tables on you. But doctor, is it possible I was an abusive mother without even knowing it? Dr. Evans looked at me with fatherly patience. Carol, I know your history. I know all the sacrifices you've made for those children. What they call emotional blackmail is actually called setting boundaries. What they call psychological abuse is called reclaiming your dignity. His words calmed me, but the legal fear remained. What can I do? You need a good lawyer, and you need the original unedited recordings. I left the doctor's office and went straight to the lawyer he had recommended, Martha Jenkins, a woman in her 40s who specialized in family law. Carol, she said after reviewing the entire case, this is what we call family lawfare. They're using the legal system as a weapon to blackmail you. But can they win? It depends on the evidence. If you have the complete recordings, we can prove theirs are maliciously edited. I have them. Perfect. But I need you to know something. This is going to be expensive, and it's going to be long. They have financial resources because they've likely sold things or gotten loans using the expectation of recovering your funding as collateral. That night, as I ate dinner alone, I reflected on what was happening. My children had not only betrayed me emotionally, but now they were attacking me legally. They had turned my fight for dignity into a crime. My doorbell rang. It was Lucy, but she wasn't alone. A young man I didn't know was with her. Grandma, she said, her eyes red from crying. This is Marcus, my boyfriend. I need to tell you something very important. I let them in and made them some tea. Grandma, I heard Dad and Valerie planning all of this. Planning what? The complaint. They hired an audio editor to manipulate your recordings. Valerie said, and I quote, if the old lady wants to play dirty, we'll show her what it really means to play dirty. Are you sure of what you heard? Grandma, I recorded it. Lucy took out her cell phone. Marcus helped me. He studies computer science, and he taught me how to use a recording app. I have the entire conversation where they plan how to manipulate the evidence and how to use the legal system to blackmail you. For the first time in days, I smiled. Lucy, you're an angel. But there's more, Grandma. Something that's going to hurt you a lot. Tell me. Dad told Valerie that if this plan works and you start giving them money again, they're going to have you declared mentally incompetent. They're going to say you have senile dementia and get legal guardianship over you and your money. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? Valerie said, once we get control of the money back, we'll take her to my cousin the psychiatrist and get her declared incompetent. That way she can never blackmail us again. Marcus, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. Mrs. Harrison, I'm a law student as well as a computer science major. What they're planning is a much more serious crime than the accusations they've made against you. This is conspiracy to commit fraud and elder abuse. I sat in silence, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. My children didn't just want my money. They wanted to strip me of my freedom, my decision-making ability, my dignity as a human being. "Grandma?" Lucy said, taking my hand. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled with true calm. "Lucy, my love, I'm going to teach them what it really means to play dirty." The day after learning about Lucy's recording, I woke up earlier than ever. But this time, it wasn't from anxiety or worry. It was because I had a mission to accomplish and all the time in the world to enjoy it. The first thing I did was call my lawyer, Martha Jenkins. "Martha, I have the proof we needed, and much more." "What kind of proof?" "A recording of my children planning to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal my money." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Carol, that changes the entire landscape. This is no longer family lawfare. This is a criminal conspiracy. I need you to come to my office immediately." 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Martha, playing the recording Lucy had made. Hearing Andrew and Valerie's voices again, plotting my destruction, brought a strange mix of pain and satisfaction. "Carol," Martha said, her eyes bright, "with this, we're not just going to defend you against their false complaint. We are going to file a counter-complaint for conspiracy, fraud, and elder abuse. They could face up to 5 years in prison." "Really?" "Absolutely. Furthermore, we're going to request a restraining order so they can't come near you." "And my money? Can they force me to start giving it to them again?" Martha smiled. "Carol, after this, they will never be able to claim another dollar from you. In fact, they will likely have to pay you for damages." I left Martha's office feeling like a new woman. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one on the defensive. They were. That afternoon, I decided to do something I had been putting off for decades. Take care of myself. I went to the most elegant salon in the city, one of those places I had walked past 1,000 times, but never dared to enter because they seemed too expensive. "How can we help you?" a young woman asked with a genuine smile. "I want a complete makeover," I told her. "Cut, color, manicure, pedicure. Whatever it takes to make a 64-year-old woman feel beautiful again." I spent 4 hours in that salon, being pampered and treated like a queen. They cut my hair into a modern bob that took 10 years off me. They gave me subtle highlights that covered the gray. They did my nails, gave me a facial, and applied soft makeup. When I saw myself in the mirror at the end, I couldn't hold back tears. "Ma'am," the stylist said, "you look beautiful." And she was right. For the first time in years, I looked beautiful. Not like the worn-out mother I had been, but like Carol, the woman who had built a legacy with her own 2 hands. After the salon, I did something even bolder. I went into an elegant boutique and bought myself new clothes. Not practical, cheap clothes like I had worn for decades, but beautiful clothes, in my size, in colors that flattered me. I spent more in one afternoon than I normally spent on clothes in an entire year, and I didn't feel a single ounce of guilt. That night, when Lucy came to visit as usual, her jaw dropped. "Grandma, you look incredible." "Don't I?" I said, doing a little spin like a model. "I feel like a new woman." "That's because you are a new woman," she said, hugging me. "You're the grandma you were always meant to be. Free, beautiful, and without toxic people taking advantage of you." A week later, Martha called with extraordinary news. "Carol, Claire, and Andrew have withdrawn their complaint." "Are you serious?" "Completely. Their lawyers found out about Lucy's recording and advised them to drop everything before we filed the counter-complaint." "So, what happens now?" "Now you decide if you want to press criminal charges against them or if you'd prefer to leave things as they are." I thought about it for days. Did I really want to put my own children in jail? Did I really want to turn this family story into a criminal case? I finally decided against it. Not because I forgave them, but because they no longer had any power over me. I no longer cared enough to spend my energy punishing them. "Martha," I said over the phone, "I'm not going to press charges, but I want a permanent restraining order. I don't want them to come near me, ever again." "I understand. And if they try to contact you in the future, then we will file all the charges." 2 months after all this drama, I moved into a new apartment in the West Village. It was smaller than my old place, but it was in a modern building with a doorman, a garden, and a view of a beautiful park where old men played chess and young mothers pushed their babies in strollers. For the first time in my life, I was living in a place chosen by me, paid for with my money, and decorated to my taste. Lucy helped me move. She was the one who carried the boxes, arranged the new furniture I bought, and hung the curtains I chose because I liked them, not because they were the cheapest. "Grandma," she said as we hung a beautiful painting I had bought at an art gallery, "do you ever regret what you did?" "Which part?" "Cutting ties with Dad and Aunt Claire." I looked out the window of my new apartment. Down in the park, an elderly woman was feeding pigeons while a man her age read the newspaper on a bench. They looked peaceful, content, enjoying a dignified retirement. "Lucy," I said, "I don't regret a single decision I made. For the first time in my life, I am the owner of my time, my money, and my decisions." "And you don't miss having a big family?" "My love," I said, hugging her, "a family isn't measured by the number of people, but by the quality of the love you share. You are my family. You are more family to me than they were in 30 years. 6 months later, on a sunny spring afternoon, I was having coffee on the terrace of a chic cafe near my new apartment when I saw Claire walking on the opposite sidewalk. She looked haggard, thinner, wearing clothes that were no longer designer brands. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she walked quickly, staring at the ground. For a moment, I felt a pang of maternal pain. She was my daughter, after all. The child I had given birth to, raised, and loved with all my soul. But then I remembered her words. "We don't need useless old women with money." And I remembered that she had chosen to see me as an obstacle instead of her mother. Claire passed without seeing me, lost in her own problems, probably rushing to some job she had to get now that she didn't have my money as a safety net. I didn't feel satisfaction seeing her like that, but I didn't feel pity either. I felt nothing. And I realized that was exactly what I needed to feel. Nothing. Not love, not hate, not resentment, not guilt. Just the peace of having closed a painful chapter of my life. That night, as I ate a delicious pasta I had ordered in because I felt like it and could afford it, I reflected on the journey I had taken. I had lost 2 children, but I had gained my freedom. I had lost a dysfunctional family, but I had gained my dignity. I had lost the role of the sacrificial mother, but I had gained the identity of a complete woman. And I had discovered something I never thought existed, the happiness of living for myself. The next day, I did something I had been planning for weeks. I went to a travel agency. "I want to book a Mediterranean cruise," I told the travel agent. "For how many people?" "Just one. For me." "And when would you like to travel?" "Next week, if possible." The agent looked at me, surprised. "Next week?" "Ma'am, those cruises are booked months in advance. I don't mind paying extra. I want to leave next week." And I left. For the first time in my life, I traveled alone, for pure pleasure, spending my money on myself. For 10 days, I sailed through crystal-clear waters, met interesting people, ate in elegant restaurants, bought souvenirs I liked, and took pictures of beautiful sunsets. And every night, when I went to bed in my private cabin, I fell asleep with a smile on my lips. When I returned to New York, Lucy was waiting for me at the airport with a bouquet of flowers. "How was the trip, Grandma?" "It was perfect, my love. Absolutely perfect." "You look different," she said, studying my face. "Different how?" "I don't know. Younger. Happier. Like you found something you had lost." And she was right. I had found something I had lost decades ago. Myself. That night, as I unpacked my suitcases full of beautiful memories, I thought of Michael, my late husband. "Michael," I said to his photo on my nightstand, "I think I finally understand what it means to be happy. It's not having children who love you for your money. It's loving yourself enough not to let anyone treat you badly." A year later, on my 65th birthday, I hosted a small party in my apartment. I invited Lucy, Marcus, some new friends I had made in my yoga class, Dr. Evans, and Martha, my lawyer. It was a small, intimate party, full of people who truly appreciated me. As I cut my favorite chocolate cake, I remembered my previous birthday, when I had spent the day alone, waiting for calls that never came. How different my life was now. Grandma, Lucy said, raising her glass of wine, I'd like to make a toast. Please do. To the bravest woman I know. To the one who had the courage to say enough when everyone expected her to stay quiet. To the one who chose her dignity over fake love. To the one who taught us that it's never too late to start over. Everyone raised their glasses and toasted to me. And I, Carol Harrison, 65 years old, former sacrificial mother, new free woman, smiled with a happiness I never thought I would feel again, because I had learned the most important lesson of my life. True love is not bought, begged for, or negotiated. True love is given freely, or it is not given at all, and I had chosen to give it only to those who deserved it, to Lucy, and for the first time in decades, to myself. Have you ever experienced a similar situation, or do you know someone who has? Tell me about it in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so that this message can reach someone who might need to hear it.